panel. It's called From Participation to Self-Sufficiency. Now, we all recognize this, I think. In the current political climate, in the social context, democracy can be seen as at risk. Participation is slowing down. Polarization and nationalism can have a big impact on trust in institutions, making citizens sometimes feel detached, participate less in their community. In this panel, we're going to investigate how to react to this, how to respond, and bring people back together to take part in their own lives and into their community, as this is also often vital to strengthen resilience with these climate, social, political shocks. The central question of this panel is a crucial one. How do we shift from designing for communities to designing with communities, with you, to really involve people in the making of inclusive spaces in neighborhoods? Now, of course, we want to put our money where our mouth is, so this is going to be an active panel, and we design that and do that with you. So we involve you in many different ways. So please be ready to give input in two ways. Yes? Are you with me? Our panelists, who I will introduce in a moment, will start by giving a short pitch of their best practice from an experience to empower underrepresented groups, showing how democratic participation and local decentralized models can transform the way our neighborhoods are built. After their pitch, which will be 3 minutes, they will ask you, the audience, a question for input. And you can answer by scanning the QR code that will appear on the screen. And you can also go to the website Slido and put in #NewEuropeanBauhaus. We will get through that later. You don't have to remember this now. Good to know that our online audience can participate as well. So this is one way for you to participate. Secondly, after our 4 panelists have pitched, we will have a general discussion about these topics, led by your questions. So via the same QR code, you can send in your questions, and we will try to get through them. Because of time, we may not be able to answer all of them, but please do send in your questions for our panelists. Okay, are you ready? Then please welcome our panelists. They come in 4, so I'm going to give their names, and then they will strut to the stage. An applause after, if you will, I've mentioned all of their names. Dalila Dias, coordinator at Aldeias Bauhaus Oroas and Historical Villages of Portugal. Seung-ho Park Lee, Associate Professor, Department of Design and Institute for Carbon Neutrality, Ulsan National Institute of Science and Technology from South Korea. Iris van den Abeel, Program Manager, Service of Urban Renewal in the city of Ghent, here in Belgium. And Finn Williams, the City Architect of Malmö in Sweden. A huge round of applause. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been looking forward to this for a while. We've been preparing, of course. As said, the 4 of you experts will first very shortly pitch a best practice, followed by a question for the audience. And I look forward to hearing your contribution first. Dalila Dias, the stage is yours.
Thank you.
And please give it up for Dalila.
Good morning for all. On behalf of Oroas Bauhaus Consortium and the Historical Villas of Portugal Association, we'd like to thank you for the invitation. In 2022, this cross-border territory research turning point, 6 villages, 3 regions, 2 countries, and 1 shared vision come together through the Village for the Future Consortium. Supported by a European project, these communities choose cooperation over fragmentation, building common solutions for common challenge. Different territories, shared realities, shared challenge. And what were those challenges? Aging population, the population, young people living in search in opportunities, climate change and increasing wildfire risk, limited access to service, economic vulnerability, and etc., etc. The first phase created something essential: trust, dialogue, training, and a shared vision for the future. Building on this success, a new chapter has already begun. A second project was recently approved under the Interreg Spain-Portugal program, allowing us to move from cooperation to transformation. Borders are part of our geography, but they don't define our future. And now, please, I need to pass to the other slide.
So you have the clicker over there.
Sorry. Yeah. Another project that was and are very inspired in working with communities and on the border is historical villas of Portugal. When communities work together, borders become meeting points rather than dividing lines. And this belief is not new for us, for Historical Villas of Portugal. For more than 25 years, the Historical Villas of Portugal have demonstrated how cooperation, heritage and community-led development can transform territories. Historical Villas of Portugal, we are 12 and 10 municipalities united by a shared development strategy. It's very important, and long-term strategy. Located in Portugal-Spain border region, a territory shaped by centuries of cultural exchange and cooperation. A governance model built on cooperation, territorial cohesion, and long-term commitment. It's not only to define a strategy, we need to be committed with that strategy. Heritage as a source of innovation, creative, and resilience. How this is important for now and forever. Our identity. Transforming cultural identity in sustainable development opportunities. You can't imagine how we can be innovation, how we can do innovation supported by our heritage. A living example of how rural communities can lead territorial transformation. 25 years, don't forget it. The Historical Villas of Portugal demonstrate that the best way to honor history is not to freeze in time, but to give it new meaning and new functions for contemporary communities. That's what we are today. And in this sense, I'm gonna leave you our question. Oh.
Yes. So thank you so much. A round of applause for Dalila, of course. And this is your opportunity. This is your opportunity to answer the first question. Can we go to that question, the first question, that is, when communities face the same challenges, do borders still matter? So you can scan the QR code and give your opinion on if you feel, if we all face the same challenges, what do we feel about borders? Are they still strongly influencing decisions and therefore important? Do they matter only for administrative reasons? Do shared challenges matter more than borders? Or does cooperation overcome borders? So we can see what the audience is voting for. It's interesting that indeed borders do still seem important to most of you. Dalila, what do you think when you see these results coming in? I'm guessing you have a microphone, do you? Or do you?
Yes. I have.
Because it says that shared challenges matter more than borders.
Well, it's fantastic because...
That's fantastic, I agree.
Yes, because for us there is no borders.
No.
There is challenge, common challenge, that we need to think how to make that and how to achieve the solutions. And you can't imagine how creative And with cooperation, we could be very innovative people. And sometimes we don't need to do the same things. We can make more efficient our solutions and our work. Because we don't divide, as I told, we work together to achieve a solution. And I stay very comfortable with your answer.
Good to hear. Thank you so much, Dalila Diaz. Thank you. And thank you so much for participating, of course. We move on to our next guest, Sung Ho. The stage is yours. A huge round of applause.
Hello, I am Sung Ho, and I run a small design research lab called New Design Studio at Ulsan National Institute of Science and Technology. Nice to meet you. Today I'm going to talk about what runs through some of the projects we've done in the recent years with citizens. We work with futures not as predictions, but as a way to help people imagine what the future could be and might be possible. The goal is to produce many futures with citizens between possible and projected futures, and together find preferred future that is politically and practically negotiable. With Korea's National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art, we translated likely scenarios from the IPCC report into future newspaper articles set in 2061. The aim was to help museum goers imagine what climate change could look like and develop policy alternatives for the museum. This was meaningful because more than half of the total carbon footprint of museum visits actually come from mobility choices. Today, South Korea is undergoing a rapid demographic shift with population decline and aging at a pace rarely seen in modern history. In many smaller cities like Andong and Miryang, the issue is not only fewer babies, but young people leaving and not returning. Last year, with the support of National Research Fund, we worked with citizens in Miryang and Andong to explore what shrinking cities might become more compact, connected, and livable, rather than relying on conventional growth policies such as cash incentives for newcomers. In the workshop, citizens used scenarios, cards, and pre-prompted Gen AI to create future newspapers. Across 16 workshops, more than 200 participants created 52 future newspapers, which represented 52 alternative futures. We brought these and other materials to experts with various backgrounds and translated them into urban transition pathways. We then brought those pathways back to the citizens as a form of policy exhibition for feedback and prioritization. Now let me ask my two questions. Are you trying to reframe a big picture challenge with citizens? If so, would futures or future newspapers be useful for you or for your team? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sung Ho, please have a seat. Thank you so much. So indeed, these are the questions. Just trying to sort of gauge you as an audience to see if you are, or some of you maybe, are indeed at this moment trying to reframe a big challenge. Is that something? Yes. So the first answer is yes, Sung Ho. So let's see if there are, yes, there's more people dealing with these kinds of issues in the room. So that's good to know that there's indeed, this is something that is on the mind of quite a lot of the people in our audience. Okay, thank you so much. So since you have sneaky two questions, we're going to quickly move on to the next one and see if your solution or your very interesting proposal to work with the newspapers, if that could be something that you could use in your team. Yes. It's a very interesting way to make people think about what a possible future could look like, right?
I'm happy to hear that.
Amazing. Yes, this has been inspiring to people. Thank you so much for letting us know, and a huge round of applause for Sung Ho. Thank you. Amazing. Good. We move on to our next panelist, Iris. The stage is yours. You use round of applause for Iris van den Abeel.
Hello, I'm Iris. I'm from Ghent, not so far from here. And I'm here to talk about the district where I work as a program director. We have a lot of aims to make it more livable, but one of them is how we can decarbonize our district in a very difficult setting. The housing is 19th, 20th century, so very old. A lot of private and individual ownership, a lot of renting, people are renting their house. A lot of the houses have less than 10 square meters as a free private space outside. And a lot of people over there also have a very low income. We wanted to make a living lab because if you see here, you have, we can call it winners or losers. You have people who are individually ready to go for the decarbonization, but a lot more than half of the people do not have the skills or not the money or not the knowledge to follow what is necessary to really get off the gas grid that there is now. Of course, we did all the calculations. We tried to pick up all the necessary data to, first of all, be sure, is it possible, is it feasible? We checked the aquathermal water because it's on a peninsula. We could use it in this district, but also a lot of free grounds or a new project where we could use a geothermal heat. The heat demand is very low in those specific houses. I will return back to that. But, so it's possible. But to implement, for example, a collective warmth net, we have also a lot of issues in those 19th century districts. The streets are very small and a lot of things are already underneath the roads. And also, because it's very dense, if you go to an individual solutions, the noise of the heat pumps, they're still on the market today. It is really inside of the courtyards of the house, a big noise problem. We made a lot of maps. On the top, in the middle, you can see that the darkest colors are the houses that are not ready now for a district heating on 40 degrees. It is just as it is. The insulation lobby and stuff like that, it is trying very hard to make everybody ready, but it goes slow. Only 1 or 2% a year of the houses is adapted. And it is also like that. You can't pull the grass. It won't grow harder than it is. So we had to work around that. We entered, we did our living lab with a specialist also in participation and inclusion. And we also, because of the connection we could make with people who live there, we could have the real data in the houses, and we could also make this map. It is how important the behavior of people is in the use of energy. As you can see in the insulated houses, people who live in insulated houses, they use the exact same amount of energy as people who have renovated already roofs and windows, but now are saying, yes, we can put on the heat 21 degrees during the whole day, for example. It's very important to know that behavior is such a big issue over there. You also can see that the renovation of roofs and windows, the thing that is most feasible for people to, the low fruit that I call it, it has already a very big impact, and it is more affordable also. You make the most of the, most out of it, the most gain in energy, less energy use, you can gain over there. Another slide to show that the theoretical labels that we give labels A to G, A of course the high end. You see on the graphic over there, there is a big gap when you calculate theoretically how much energy a house will use if they are on an F label, and in yellow, the real use of energy. People just put the heat lower. They don't heat the whole house. And it's very important that we could prove that with the data by going in with the people in their house. We could collect people who wanted to give us their data inside. That's why people are not investing in their houses, because they cannot gain what theoretically is said it should be.
Okay, we need to move on to your question
Just one slide.
very quickly.
So.
Yeah, because I do want to give the audience
Yeah,
also
sorry,
the
sir.
opportunity.
What did we do? We implemented, or we made a project where we implemented a heat net on 60 degrees. In that way, everybody could enter, even though if the houses were not yet insulated. And it's also very quickly, that's also important, because everybody who enters can enter now, and we have the CO2 reduction very quickly instead of within 10 years. The question?
Perfect. Thank you so much. A huge round of applause for Iris. And then our question is, you can have a seat if you want to. It's about your own home. Is your home, that where you live, already fossil-free? Not at all, not much. Yeah, quite a lot already. Completely. You either don't know or you don't really know what fossil-free means. Also an important way. Not much is what I see here mostly now. Or not at all. Oh, not much and not at all are the two top ones now. There's some work to be done, I reckon. Not much, quite a lot is coming up. I'm happy to see that. Thank you, everyone, to also put that in. There is someone that says completely here. I'm really happy to see that as well. But not much and quite a lot seem to be the two ones. What do you make of this, Iris, very shortly?
First of all, I'm really happy that everyone knows what fossil-free means, because that is where you start with people in the district. They don't know what it means. They can't read maps. They are not interested in the energy transitions. So you have to come from far away. You people, you are the low fruit. You know what we're talking about. You are following it. You're interested even in it because you're sitting here. You choose to take part of the transition.
Indeed. Yes, thank you so much. Iris van den Ambeel, thank you so much to talk about. We move on to our last panelist. Finn, the floor is yours. Please welcome Finn.
Great. Well, as you can hear from my accent, I'm not very Swedish, but I am, in fact, representative of Malmö because over half of our population has a foreign background. We're proud that people from 187 different nationalities have chosen to live in Malmö, to the extent that there was a civic crowdfunding initiative to support people from the last remaining countries to move to Malmö so that we would have and represent the whole world. But when I moved to Malmö from London to become city architect 5 years ago, I was surprised how little the diversity of the city was reflected in the meetings and events I found myself in. And when I asked for figures about Malmö's built environment industry, architects, planners, developers, the only data we had was on gender. So we got some funding to, see if I can change that, carry out the first full study of just how representative the profession really is, not just visible aspects like age, gender, ethnicity, but all the grounds covered by anti-discrimination law. And it showed that architects in Malmö are half as likely to have a foreign background, 4 times less likely to have grown up in a deprived area, 15 times less likely to be Muslim. And it showed that our built environment industry lacks the breadth of perspectives and lived experiences we need to understand the very complex and diverse needs of the communities we're designing for. We can try to compensate for this, of course, through consultation, participation, but it's a lot easier for us to do our job well if we have this knowledge around the table from the first beginning. We also carried out workshops to understand what the barriers are for people from underrepresented groups to enter the profession, how we can break them down. We heard from over 800 people, and we heard their personal testimonies as well as their questions. Can we design inclusive places if the profession itself is not inclusive? We realised this is a systemic issue that can't be resolved by one organisation or one project, so we needed to build a movement. We founded an independent not-for-profit organisation, Urban Academy, which now has over 40 members, including universities, private sector, public sector, civil society. They've all committed to 8 concrete actions and 1 overarching mission to make Malmö's built environment sector reflect the people we serve within a generation. And it's starting to make a difference, from what kind of role models represent the profession on stage to spreading best practice in recruitment, and from rethinking university application processes to building awareness and urban literacy amongst children through our libraries. We're now aiming to make the city part of the curriculum in every school in Malmö over the next 4 years. We've also established Malmö in the Making, a festival of hundreds of events and activities, all about building Malmö citizens' capacity to influence how the city develops. The result will hopefully be architecture that expresses Malmö's incredible diversity, just like our food and music do, and in turn a city more people feel they belong to. So Sweden has a very proud history of democratic design, but today I think that's not only about the right to decent housing, the right to public space, it's also got to be about building the right to design. I was asked to end with one question.
Yes, indeed.
I just want to frame that by saying it's an incredible range of nationalities we have in this room, but I'm really interested to hear if each of us think that where we work, how far we really represent the diversity of the people we serve. And I imagine that's coming up on the slide.
It is. Thank you so much, Finn Williams, indeed. So to make sure that we understand, you mean by how far do we reflect the diversity of the people we serve at our workplace, where we work, how far, to what extent really do we reflect the diversity? Not much is the first that comes up now. And that's where it stays, unfortunately. How do you see this, Finn?
Yeah, I mean, it's all relative. We all work in very different contexts across Europe. I think one thing that's been consistent from all of the work we've done in this in Malmö and conversations we've had across Sweden is that the profession is really open and willing to be inclusive, but we don't necessarily know where we aren't representative. And I think getting statistics on this enables us to be much more focused and precise on saying, well, you know, in Sweden maybe it isn't an issue around, for example, disability, but there is a real issue around, you know, this specific form of diversity, and then we can start to really be more take action that makes a bigger difference in terms of breaking down the barriers to entering the profession.
Indeed, and this is so crucial to actually realize, because seeing it like this sort of hammers home the fact that we need to look into this, and this is very important. So thank you so much, and also thank you so much to the audience for responding. A huge round of applause to all our panelists. Thank you. Okay. So let's dive into this a little bit deeper. Don't hesitate to ask your questions via the same QR code that you used to answer these questions. Our central theme for this panel is how do we shift from designing for communities to designing with communities? But there is an underlying question there that there is already a community in place, right? So this is quite important because sometimes the community itself, or maybe the village or the group that you're trying to work with, is not cohesive or is not connected. So people are not only participating, they're also not coming together. And I think this is something that if we step back a little bit, we need to address as well, especially in these times of maybe polarization and people stepping away from being connected. So in your experience, how can you bring people together to start raising the voice of a group? Anyone who'd like to go?
Yeah, I could start and drawing perhaps on some of my experience of working in London and for the Mayor of London with this question. I think as long as we talk about communities, there is always a risk that the strongest communities are actually more clearly defined by what they have in common, and can in some instances be quite an exclusive format in their own right. Yeah. So you can have incredibly powerful community groups that really try and drive local change, but don't necessarily take into account the impact of that change on the neighbouring community. I think that's where the point about plurality is so important. And why we have a responsibility, particularly from the public sector side, to work with questions like representation, make sure that we're really listening to the full range of voices that are out there, but also think over time. Now, it's one thing to ask what a community wants and needs right now, but we've also, of course, with the questions the European Bauhaus raises, got to think about the rights and needs of future generations. And there are lots of great models, not least newspapers, to fast forward in time and think back to how that might change how we think about what a specific community wants right here and now.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Any additions to this, Dalila?
For our experience, and it's so large, as you can imagine, 25 years, we can move communities when we give benefits, when we demonstrate that we can solve the problems and to improve the quality life. For example, in the case of Historical Village, and of course we are doing that in the region, Eroas region, what we are doing, for example, as we are aging population, for example, and we want to bring other people to live there, but special to resolve this problem of the aging population because of the mobility, for example. We improve the accessibility inside of the village, for example, okay? Some people didn't get out because they couldn't walk in the streets, for example, okay? And with this, the implementation of these mobility lanes, for example, old people nowadays, they can and they can't be outside and in the public space, for example. Another one is the lack of mobility. They don't have public transports every day, so we improved and make a partnership with some enterprises and bring electric cars for that people to use in a free way, for example. So with this, we can of course, bring people because we arrange the solutions for them. Another one is, for example, renewable energy. People, we are starting that new pilot, new case, and if everything goes well, of course, we want to replicate in the other historical village, for example, but people can obtain energy with 50% reduce of the cost. And they didn't have the necessity to make any investment, okay?
Yes.
That's some kind of examples that we can bring because we are improved and we take care, we listen, and that's the Bauhaus, it's very useful for that because we share our problems, we share our visions, and we share our solutions.
Indeed. And I think it's so important to realize that you need to have a very open mind and a good view as to what barriers can be to create more participations and then try and take those away. Thank you so much. Any others? Iris, yes?
Yeah, I think you should be very aware of the fact that in a population, in a district, the amount of people that are capable on thinking on the very high level of a further away future, there's very few people who are able to do it, who have the time to do it in their daily life.
It's a privilege almost that you get to sort of think in that way.
Meeting tigers you have over there. But a lot of people, they like to take action very concrete in their own environment, like things with greenery, for example. Like if you talk about energy or fossil-free, it's high level. But if you talk about, did you had cold, could you heat your house in the last energy crisis, for example? You have to attach to what the people really feel in their house, to how they live in their surroundings, and of course give them things that they can change instead of waiting on things that should be decided on high political levels. Don't let them participate in things where they don't have issue in changing.
No. So it needs to be quite personal for them, but also understandable and in a way that fits with their life. And I think this is an important point here because for New European Bauhaus, but also I think for this kind of work, to empower groups that are less represented, minority groups that are often also, I think in our experience, more affected by, for instance, climate crisis, housing, public spaces, those kinds of things. So I think this is an important next step to then look at how can we involve and empower those kinds of groups, because they are also the groups that often deal with the consequences more. So what do you think about this? Sorry to make it harder, but this is, I think, a crucial point to really tackle.
Yeah. Can I?
Please.
Yeah. So when we think about any big picture challenges like climate change or complexity, there's a big delay between the causes and the effects to the people. And as we've just discussed, all the panelists pointed out, when we think about these big picture challenges, there's nobody who is outside the scope of this impact. And basically, it is very difficult to define what a community is. And like in South Korea, in these complexity discourse, what's often left out is not international people, not with people with disability, but actually people who run small businesses like restaurants and bars. Because they work extremely long hours and they don't have time to participate in these forums. And so they're often just left out because they don't have time to come. Yeah. And basically, in order to create this opportunity for them to come, the way public sector works, should change so that they can be included in the comfortable time they can participate. Yes.
Yeah, to follow up on this thing, I'll come to you, because Andrea asked a question, how you can also grant access to decision-making bodies to minorities when most of these bodies are controlled by established groups. I think this sort of speaks to this issue as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's requires a kind of a shift in a way of thinking. We sometimes talk about hard-to-reach groups.
Yeah.
As if somehow they're making themselves hard to
yes.
reach. They're out there.
Yes.
They're working away in their restaurants or going about their daily business.
Yes.
It's up to us to meet them in formats and forums that are comfortable to them where they already are.
Indeed, it's the same when you speak about people who have a distance to the labour market. No, it's the labour market that has a distance to the people. Right. I think this is a very important way to think about it.
And I think we often make the same mistake about saying we need to train people up to learn how to engage with the complex systems of planning. No, we need to learn how to speak normal language that actually makes sense to people in their daily life. And I think that turnaround comes from asking these kind of questions about, like, who is in the room when we're talking about this new program or policy. And the more we can start to work to get the people in the room representing people with different backgrounds and lived experience, the closer you come to a kind of language, but also a strategy of how you reach out to and engage with people that genuinely works for the whole population.
Yes, and when you look at specifically decision-making bodies, as per the question of Andrea, what would be a way to make sure that there's involvement there as well?
Well, I think, and this is our reality, when decision makers, of course, they understand the needs of people. Sometimes they don't have the resources to give all the answers, and that is the problem. Of course, they know what they need to do, but how they can implement it. They don't have resources, special fundings to resolve that problems. And I think in this case, to deliver on Bauhaus the specificity to resolve, the Bauhaus principle need to go further, not only to training, to create awareness, to identify the problems and define the solutions, but also define an approach multi-funding. Because we are always listening. People, we are also listening the decision makers and how we can resolve this. So, and sometimes, and we felt that in the first project about EROAS, we felt that because we were doing and listening and bring people to this process, and then 3 years after, where are the solutions? Okay, so this second projects, of course, we are now implementing something only something
Yes.
very teeny, but it's in the rural space. We need strong policy. We need an approach, multi-integrated approach, and multi-fund, because we listen, but we need to make the implementation of the solutions
Yes.
immediately.
Yes, and this is crucial.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
and if you have that solution, of course we have communities and we have the decision making.
Yes, indeed. Yes, Iris, go ahead.
I
I've
can
seen
give
you.
a very concrete answer or solution to that. If you have a program, the core group of the program who make sure that the process is done properly, it exists from a program director, but also a program communicator and an expert in participation who is the link between the citizens and the government of our city. So that is very direct, and also they can say for every project in the complete program, what is the best way of connecting to people, of what are the places where you can find those people, and which method we will use to just the people who are involved in that specific project, how will we keep them. And that's why in the project of the energy, we also could add in the living lab with a lot of high studied people, we also could add a participation expert who was a little bit, who had the knowledge. He knew what a kilowatt was, for example, but he also had the knowledge and the patience to adapt to what people needed to hear about it.
Yes.
So he could enter what people wanted
Crucial.
in the project.
Yeah, that's crucial.
And
Can I just interrupt? Because the good news is I have quite a lot of questions here, which is great. Thank you so much. That's amazing. I'm going to need all of you to try and be slightly briefer, if that's okay, so I can deal with as many as I can. Yeah? Is that okay? Okay. Finn, did you want to ask something, or are you now like, no? Okay, I didn't mean that you can't say anything anymore. There's a question here from Ben, thank you so much, that is also something that I wanted to hear from you slightly differently, but Ben says, what are the practices or technologies in your toolbox that are the first things you reach for to build community? And that goes a little bit, if you can think about this, what is a lesson that you've really learned in your work that can help sort of strengthen your communities? So give us your best tools in your toolbox, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is perhaps the wrong advice to give, but in my experience, the things that can really galvanize a community, that can pull people together, is when something outrageously bad is proposed in their area.
That is an interesting suggestion.
I mean, there's nothing like a kind of terrible proposal for a new tower in the neighborhood to really incite and mobilize a community.
Yeah.
But I think the really powerful and interesting thing is how we then, as people who work with the kind of framework for participation, and it can kind of reach this moment of alchemy when opposition can flip into proposition, can flip into, well, we don't want that. What we want instead is this. Yeah. And I think that's something I've worked a lot on in London, that we try and work on in Malmö, is provide the conditions, the capacity, the support. Sometimes that's about seed funding, sometimes it's about access to expertise, sometimes it's about explaining longer term policies and opening up what those policies might be to community groups to say, all right, we understand, you don't want that.
No.
Now come with your own proposals.
Yeah.
And that's when you can really start to get change happening.
Great, so we're going to propose bad things in the community. Perfect, thank you.
Provide time in the process, because people need time to be able to participate.
Yes.
Don't push it through, just make in your project, stand still, take the time to connect, and then go on with your process.
Yes.
You ask for a toolbox, eh?
Perfect.
Time and a person.
Yes, and this really combines well with a question from John from Sweden, actually, who says, how do we combine citizen participation that is creative, inclusive, fun, radical, with planning processes that also take time, relying on certain methodologies, need to balance different interests and political decision making, and so on. So how do you sort of build that in and combine a way that is interesting and fun to be, but also has to deal with the process? Sang-Ho.
In the project I just mentioned, we used the Future newspaper to allow citizens to express themselves in the potential future, so that they can be free of realities and budget and planning, And actually, if you think about urban planning and urban changes, it takes at least 10 to 20 years to take impact and huge amount of money. And so we brought that insight to the future newspaper created by the citizens to different experts that are often hired by the municipalities so that they could plan on behalf of the citizens. But not only that, we brought that back to citizens in the form of exhibition so that they can actually comment on every single detail and also prioritize for their city. I think this kind of a stepwise process where we give agency, not only the imagination, but also agency to the citizens, but then empower them by bringing experts to support their cause to more realistic plans. I think that was our approach.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's also about being serious about the formats for participation you want, instead of putting out proposal and hoping people will give up their spare time to say whether
Yes.
they like it or not, in which case the answer is inevitably somewhat superficial and often, no, I don't like it very much.
Right.
It's about really investing in formats where you can get a deeper, longer-term conversation. And there are loads of inspiring examples across Europe around deliberative democracy, around citizens' assemblies, about participatory budgeting, but that are properly resourced.
Yeah.
Because I think we need to move away from the idea that participation is us doing communities a favor and
Yeah.
realize it's them doing us a favor, and it's something we really need to value, because if we don't have their input, we're not going to make the right decisions.
Yes, yes, please. I like an applause. It's important. Yes, thank you. No, I very much agree. And I think this is also where I think it's a good moment to go back to the audience as well, because we've been talking for quite a while already. And I think it's very important to end with hearing from our community at this moment, which is our audience. We're going to go back to the Slido, and I think it's really good to hear from you what you will take away from this conversation and possibly also use in your community. I think that would be really good to see and also to think about what could be something that you've heard. And it could be an example of some of the best practices of the panelists. It can be something you heard during the discussion, something you thought of yourselves while sitting here. You can type it in. So if you go back to, can we have the QR code here that people can scan? And then you can we? I hope so. Or hopefully you're still in there. That will be good, because we'd love to see the question here. What will you take away from this conversation and possibly use in your community? I wish I could do it myself, but I can't. I don't have that power over the screen and over the Slido. You can think about it already. Yes, of course. Think about it already, if it's an example of a best practice, if it's something that you can use that you've heard during the discussion, maybe something that you would like to also give to our panelists as ideas for their work. So if you scan the QR code, you can start putting in your answers and we'll see the cloud appearing, hopefully. By magic, yes, here we go. So if you wanted to have a look at what happens here as well, panelists, then you can give me your... Yes, I knew that was going to happen. You can give me your real-time commentary to what you see on the screen. Yeah.
I'm starting to feel slightly guilty now about making it.
No, that's okay.
We say
Yes.
extreme scenarios. Actually, the bad proposals is interesting because when we bring together different people, oftentimes in the workshops, it's their first time to meet new people.
Yeah.
But we need to give them a sense of community in a short time. And extreme scenarios actually do that, exactly.
Indeed. So
Yeah, that's why I think the democratic governance, it's very, very important. And proximity, it's very important. If we are all in the office, we can deal with people, we can deal with communities. So that's why sometimes bad proposal appeared.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So there's so much here. This makes me actually quite happy. I hope you feel the same way, panelists, to sort of see all of this in your minds, really. We're having a sneak peek into your minds here. And this is very hopeful to me. Would you agree? Right? Yeah, this is amazing. I really want, we should capture this, yes, right? And send it to all of you. Yeah, I think that's amazing. A huge round of applause for our amazing panelists, Dalila Diaz, Sungho Park Lee, Iris van den Abeel, and Finn Williams. Thank you so much. You can leave now. This is your moment to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There you go. Right, and a huge round of applause to you as well, of course, for participating in that, because that really sort of showcased that we don't want to do it about the people, we want to do it with the people. We are going to move on to a next panel that's called Strategic Reconstruction in Emergency, Lessons from Ukraine.